I would like to take a moment before we get into today's main episode and to talk about my sponsor for the podcast. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page, from to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard. Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't like to get paid from home? I like to. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. I have been a part of Podmatch since the beginning of May, and I have got to say that it was the best decision I've ever made because Podmatch helps your podcast grow. It helps you get connected with people that have very interesting, very compelling background stories that are just waiting for their story to be shared. So if you are a host or guest and would like to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, I highly suggest that you sign up with Podmatch today by going to joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to start expanding your network in seconds. I would like to give another huge thank you to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. Now on to our main episode, and again, you can sign up at joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to begin your podcasting journey today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lethal Venom Podcast, the show where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth, no lies told. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Helmut Love. He is a transformational leader, entrepreneur, spiritual guide, and current Atlanta mayoral candidate. With over 30 years of experience in executive leadership, he has generated over $700 million in revenue and impacted more than 2 billion lives through his groundbreaking work at companies like GE, IBM Watson, and Nuance. He's also the creator of the Daily Dose, which has been voted Atlanta's magazine #1 podcast in 2023. He's also the founder of the Daily Impact, which is a nonprofit devoted to personal and financial empowerment for all people. He's also the author of Wake Up to Your Life Magic, which is a bold spiritual fire starter and masterclass in creator being leadership. And his overall mission is to help break the boxes and build humans, helping people lead lives of abundance, integrity, and soulful excellence. So thank you so much for coming on, Dr. Love. It's honor to have you on here, and I cannot wait to hear this story and hear what your mission and message today.
Thank you so much, Noah. It's a pleasure to be here.
So if you could just kind of give a little rundown about what you do for a living and just kind of tell a little bit about your career.
I consult businesses on strategy and growth, teaching them leadership and then different techniques that I use for growing and saving businesses. That's what I do. I am running for mayor, so I'm obviously looking for a different job to try my hands at. And Yeah, I'd say that's what I do for a living now. Career-wise, I just studied biomedical engineering and just really worked hard. I worked in GE for 10 years, McKesson for 5. Always pursued the hardest problem in the room, kind of obsessed with solving problems. Love to solve problems. Makes me happy, makes me feel fulfilled and contributing. And that's what I really spent a lot of my career doing.
It's interesting that you had said that you are running for mayor. Tell me a little bit about what it's like being a candidate for mayor for a big city.
Well, I'd say the first thing that is interesting, regardless of probably the size of the city or the time of the race, is that you're going to have to be really clear about your views on everything. So, where, a regular citizen might feel kind of this way about abortion or kind of this way about, um, taxes or kind of this way about this or that. um, all of a sudden, when you're running for office, you're kind of putting your opinion out there. And it's a lot of really deciding and defining who are you really? Why do you believe that? Are you willing to stand up in front of your fellow citizens and say that, right? And defend it against positions that are different than you? So I'd say that's probably the first thing is just a personal moment with you and God, figuring out like, what do I really believe? And then the second part I'd say is now it becomes you and your quote unquote friends. So when you step into the arena of politics, some people will be your friends and some people will no longer be your friend. You find out that they really weren't your friend, or they're not as close or strong to you. Um, because running for politics is a little bit like, being a leader in a specific church or synagogue or temple. It's just like taking a stand. I stand for these things. And when you stand up in life, there are people that are flowing in a different direction in the river, right? And when you stand up and say, "Hey, I want the river to flow left," and there are people who are going right, it's just friction. So you have to be prepared that first, kind of your view with God or whatever your highest form of self is, and then, your neighbors and your friends, knowing that people will be different. And then the last part is just being prepared for now everybody who's anybody can make a comment, have a feeling about you, say something, think something. It can be loving, unloving. It is just something you have to be prepared for. And I haven't even hit the worst of that, Noah. I'm fairly under the radar at this point. That part will come in these next months. And so I just get to be prepared for that kind of reaction.
How is it running in as a candidate in such a really politically divided country? Because you have people from that have all different opinions. How do you take all these opinions and make it your forefront to be able to kind of reach everyone, even if they have different opinions about whatever they believe, whether it's Republican, Democratic, or just individual? How do you reach all these people that have different views?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you something that I learned in working in work environments through my work at GE or McKesson, these different businesses. What I found is that a lot of times people wanted to make someone else the enemy. So you're in the same company, and you've experienced this. If everyone hates one of the bosses, everyone hates one of the leaders in the company, right? That kind of thing.
Mhm.
Usually, the person that's hated or dislike. Now, sometimes they are just downright nasty, and don't get me wrong, there can be some nasty people, but usually they're misunderstood. So let's just say I'll use an example of the person who has to manage the money. They're constantly saying no to different projects. They're saying no to different expenditures, right? They're saying no. You could think about this in your house. Let's say if your mom was responsible for the money, she'd be saying no or no, right? She's not being negative Nancy. She's just responsible for keeping up the finances.
Mhm.
So people may look at that person negatively, but that person's carrying a different kind of weight on their shoulders. So I think the same thing I'd find at work, right? And what you'd normally find is if you connected with the people that um, everyone thought of as being being difficult, their motives are usually good, right? Their motives are usually some in their minds they're good. Does that make sense? And so your job in a company like that, in your house, right, any space, is to find out what's motivating everyone, and then try to help them see each other more the same, and understand that everyone's kind of right. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, we got to keep a budget. Yeah, there's pressure for profit. Yeah, we're not helping clients. Yeah, so that's true in politics. Like you take those things at home or you take them at work, and they're true in politics, meaning there's truth to almost all positions. There's some kernel of truth behind a position, right? So your job is to really look at those and find what's common and bring people together in the intention behind what they believe. What I found, Noah, is most people are loving. Most people are trying to love people. Now, some people are like, hey, it's not loving for you to give people free handouts. You know what? It's not long term loving to do that. It's also not long-term loving to not help people who need help. So both are true, right? It's just the just perspective you're hearing it from. And I think of it like two parents, one parent saying it one way, one parent saying the other. The truth is in the middle. And I think that's where we are as a nation and as a city, as a state. The truth is in both sides and it's in the middle. And unfortunately, the sides are so extreme that we're often not doing the work in the middle. So we're doing all things one way or all things the other, and we're forgetting that truth is in the middle.
Outside of your candidate for mayor, you've also done multiple and have had numerous projects going on. As I had mentioned earlier, you which this was during the pandemic, you had launched the Daily Dose, which was a kind of a was a podcast, and Atlanta Magazine had named it their number one podcast of 2023. Tell me a little bit about what made you want to make the podcast, and what tell me a little bit about how the podcast came to be.
Sure. So the story I would tell you is not one I would say I'm proud of, but it's one that was necessary. So one night I was in Paris. I had some friends there. We had been partying. I was probably like, 41, 42. I had a big executive job, doing great, right? But I had like the smell of alcohol on me, weed, the smell of sex, like from some person I didn't really know really well. And I was living this life of sort of partying it up and doing all the things that a gay person might think you could do, right? Some things that sometimes, I'm not going to say all society because it's not all society, but I'd say just pockets of gay society follow. And I had lived that life for about 4 years. So I really didn't go out and do those things about 38. And I looked in the mirror and I thought, this is not what you were made for. You're a hollow shell of the person you were. You've got to turn this around, and today is the day, right? Like this is it. It was a very like a reckoning, so to speak, with myself. And so I came to Atlanta. I'm a dad at that point. I've got 3 kids. I'm invested in their lives. I'm making sure they're getting supported and loved. So that didn't change while I was, exploring these other parts of myself. But I started to, in my free time, coach gay men one-on-one about their lives, what they were struggling with, where they were hurting. And then I created a men's group in my home that was started as a game night, but then evolved into, I'd say, a chat, like a discussion, like, oh, what do you think of the church? What do you think of pornography? What do you think of drug use? What do you think of politics? Like, whatever the topic was, Noah, it was a discussion, right? And it was so healing. It was so moving to be in a room of men who were having conversations that we hadn't had before. So when the pandemic hit and I lost the job that I was in, I thought, you know what? What if I made this a podcast? But what if instead of it being all men around my same age, right? What if they were a variety of men, different ethnic backgrounds, different ages, getting to tell their stories? And I did that for a year. And after we kind of went through some of the topics, we started doing more interviews, interviewing lesbian leaders, trans leaders, straight individuals. And it really became clear to me that this kind of conversation wasn't happening in any community, meaning lesbian, trans, bi, otherwise. So I just wanted to keep having those conversations. The next seasons added on more cast members. We added on video. We just did more things to explore, being creative. It was very much I would say I call it a PBS show, right? I was like the Mr. Rogers of gay because it wasn't about being cheeky or sexual or crass or crude or poppy. It was about really going a little bit deeper. And I was very proud of it. Um, we had at one point, especially early on, it was nearly 500 listeners an episode, which was incredible. And it it served the purpose of giving a lot of young gay people something to listen into. I did get several letters and communications of people who listened to an episode and decided not to kill themselves, or listened to an episode and decided to leave a meth circle they were in. So I know that it had positive impact, and I decided to stop the show after we kind of went all the way through, did a really great televised, not televised, recorded um, episodes, kind of like The View, right, with the desk and all of us sitting, and we talked about political issues at the time, and particularly with a focus on trans health. And it felt like that was a crowning moment to say, you know what, that's good. I have done my part to document and have these dialogues in my community. Um, and I kind of set my sights on the next thing, and that's where I created Wake Up to Your Life Magic, which is about conversations we're not having in the community, focused around leadership in business, in politics, and things like spirituality, morality, connection, love in those areas.
What have been some lessons you've learned from podcasting? Has it been kind of a way for you to um, share these instances in a way that you haven't weren't able to do before?
So I would say there's a couple things. So, in the format you're doing, for example, where you ask me questions, you're not revealing something about yourself, right? And I would say that if you do podcasting where you're sharing as well, right, you're revealing your truth about that, you're sharing this thing. It can be very opening. Like it opens you up to sharing. Does that make sense? I
Mhm.
would have told you I was a very private person before I started podcasting, but once I started pushing myself to, reveal how I felt about that topic and reveal how I felt about that topic, it was a really beautiful way to come out, but not gay to say, just about me, right? About who I am, my stories, what I represent in the world. The second thing I'd say is that it's a great device for connection, creating and meeting new relationships with people. Therefore, it's a great way to even create business, right? With each person that walks in, if I have a solution or a way to help them, you know, it can be used for that. And the last thing I'd say is I learned that podcasting also is about elevating the podcast host. So it's you and your audience are going on a journey, but the most important person who's going on the journey is you, the podcast host. Because if you decide, hey, you know what, I really just want to find people who are talking about, you know, crystals and spirituality. Let's just say you take a twist and that's what you decide you really want to focus on. Well, that's great because you can meet all the most amazing leaders and really understand what crystals and spirituality have to do with each other. I don't know what they have to do with each other, okay? I use that as an example,
Mhm.
that it's really an amazing way to almost study a topic through humans.
Yeah, I've always said with podcasting, it's kind of a way that because it's kind of like what you said about spirituality and like, say someone is really into crystals. You can really make a podcast about anything that you want it to be because chances are there is someone out there that would really love your show, even if it's very, very specific and it might only reach 1 to 2 people. That's still 1 or 2 people that um are grateful to have this kind of show. So like if it was something about carpentry, if it was something about crafting, someone out there has an interest in carpentry and crafting, they would really like that podcast. So I've always said if you have an idea for a show, do it. Because chances are someone out there is going to have the same interest in that and they'll have be happy that there's a podcast dedicated to their interest and hobby that they like to do.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. I also would emphasize again, like I don't even focus right now, my current podcast, I'm not focused on if anyone listens to it. And I don't mean that in a weird way. I mean it in the way of I'm focused on how am I being in the discussion? Am I connecting with someone that I really enjoy? Am I seeking ways to share a topic and develop? So I believe very much in a mission to a podcast. I'm not, though, a traditional podcaster. So people who put podcasts together that like where it's just a fun variety show and, it's like just getting someone on and chatting, that's entertainment, right? So then you're really looking at how can you entertain the people? Is there fun sounds? Or you're looking to sort of build an entertaining podcast. And then it's really focused on how many laughs am I hitting? How many, right? Like characters. And there are people who are professional in entertainment who are doing that. And I just realized
Mm.
for me, that wasn't where I was going to thrive. I was going to thrive with a mission that was close to my heart. And by choosing something that was close to my heart, then I'm going to gain something from it, regardless of how many people are listening. And those who need to hear that message will, because it'll find them. So that was sort of my approach.
Yeah, I took a podcasting class, and one of the main things that we learned in there was every podcast has to have an intro and an outro music. And for my show, it doesn't really fit well with it. I don't like the music at the beginning. I For like the first episode, I put music at the very beginning and kind of try to edit it together where the music fades in and I start talking. And I thought the way I sound, the music don't work. So I said, we're just gonna cut the music out on the end and beginning, and it's just gonna be my voice. I don't add. I mean, the only sound I ever add to my podcast is the sensor sound. That's about the only thing I added here for like sounds, but I kind of have broke that norm of music playing at the beginning or there's some kind of intro. I don't really have an intro. I kind of was wanted to be different from everyone else and kind of
Yeah,
broke
I don't
that
have an intro
norm.
on mine either, so it's okay. I got straight to talking. Welcome and let's go.
Yeah, literally that's what I do. And it's just like the music to me, music for me was the hardest thing to do because I couldn't find a good song that worked for it. And I don't know how copyright is when it comes to like using popular songs for podcasts. I'm pretty sure it's probably not allowed, but you always have to use copyright free and royalty free and all this stuff. But yeah, music for me, I was like, something just don't sound right with me on it, so we're just not going to use music. Um,
Gotcha.
where do you hope to see the podcast kind of go from in the future for the Wake Up Your Life Magic? What's some future bucket list goals that you have for the podcast?
Oh, it's so interesting because right now, with the mayorship, I'm pursuing people with make up wake up to your life magic that are in industry, in corporate, can talk to sort of the current state that is. Eventually, I would love to elevate the conversation to people who really, really have been thinking about problem solving, the economy, the way that business works. So my hope is that I can get other thought leading individuals on there over time.
And I know for a fact that you'll reach that goal because the whole thing that I've seen with podcasting is you have to have a good personality, and you have a great personality. I mean, just from us talking, and we actually did like a pre-interview to kind of get like a little bit of talking in there and whatnot. You have that personality that shines through that a lot of podcasters don't have, and it's kind of the welcoming tone. You have kind of a very funny personality about yourself. You try to make it really delightful, and I've tried doing that with my show as well. People say I have a good voice, which I'm sad because one of my best friends said I'm the best person to put to sleep, and I said I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or that should be shade because every time I try talking to him one on one, I could say we could be talking. Right in the middle of a sentence, and he's like, and I'm just like, excuse me. So apparently, I put people to sleep. So if you listen to my show to help go to sleep at night, then have that
Welcome.
as y'all's research. I get,
You're welcome.
yeah, it's always, but you know, it, but I do hope that you will get guests to come on your show because, um, you have the personality, and you kind of have the resume too. With the Gaily Dose, I actually looked, and you had like 126 episodes of that out, and that most podcasters don't get past five. So for you to be able to
Right.
have 126 out right now, I've recorded about 100 interviews, but I've posted about 40. Most people don't even get past five. So, you've got that resume and it shows that you're real dedicated on it. So there's no doubt in my mind that you'll have guests come on.
Thank you. Did you check out the YouTube, by the way?
I can check that out. Yeah, I can
Yeah, you
pull
should
that
check out
up.
the YouTube. There were some fun shows, and you kind of really get a sense of seeing Atlanta gay, lesbian, trans culture in reality, not in a TV show. Obviously, it's nice because it's there are people dressed up to be on a show. But I'm actually quite proud of getting some of those things on film for future posterity and for just for the record, right? For the record.
Absolutely. Do you see yourself if you what's your plan? Because I know that you're running for mayor, and I know the election's coming up. Do you have a go-to plan if by some chance you don't get elected? Will you focus more on the podcast, or if you do get elected, will you try to now then balance the life as a mayor and podcaster?
Yeah. So I am a very I'm a very hard worker. So running a city is going to be a lot of work, right? It's
Yeah.
not something that's just an easy breezy thing. And I'm aggressive, so I've got a lot of plans for the city. Um, but I've learned that you get to do that and you get to develop these other aspects of my business acumen. So to me, the podcast now becomes a question of who do I want to be on my podcast that I'm talking to in business? Who do I want to bring, right? It's an amazing way to expand that. Um, People who want to invest in my nonprofit, yes, please do. Uh, I'm focused on, as I yawn through that, sorry, it's been a long day, as I focus on wealth redistribution, right? How do you redistribute wealth to people? It's got to be based on merit. It's got to be based on them working hard for it. And yet, you want to make sure that you're providing programming that expands people's minds and souls in the process of them, becoming an entrepreneur. So, um, I just view if I get the position of mayor, I get to serve the city and also benefit others through my businesses. They're all focused on helping people. So I don't feel bad at all. It's not like I'm, building hotels or whatever. The counterpart is if I don't win the mayorship, then I keep going with all the rest of the pieces. They don't stop. So either way, I keep going.
Well, I don't have any idea what it's like running for mayor. That's just something that's not in there. But, it takes a lot of hard work to run a city, especially for Atlanta. It's considered one of the biggest cities in the South and Southeast quadrant. And, you know, what are some visions that you have for Atlanta where it comes to, making the city kind of thrive again, or what's some of your game plans that you have for the city?
Sure. So I think it's very sobering and important right now to think about what's going on economically for all of us. Um, I think that we're seeing capitalism hit its limits and its edges, where we are not taking care of people over profit. And so we've gotten to sort of the limiting edge of where we're feeling that in our budgets, we're feeling that in our food, we're feeling that in the way our options for dressing. Like we've removed the cost out of everything, but we're slaves to all the bills we pay. And that's overwhelming. And so every state is going to somewhat have to thrive on its own in this time. And um, that's because the federal dollars are being cut, right? So it's really important to think about ways to be super creative with an economy And to me, that's about making Atlanta a thing, a market, a marketing, marketing Atlanta to the world. It's about getting people organized on their Instagrams, Facebooks, etc., to go out and sell and promote products and experiences that help and benefit the city and really banding those voices together. It's about entertainment deals, right, with those people. Um, I I really think that putting out a positive message to the world around I call it a One Love consortium. I mean, these are all people and the citizens who want to participate, but people who want to get together and build a brand that's either faith-based, finance-based, and earth conservation-based, humanitarian aid-based. Those are all amazingly positive messages to share with the world. So I'm excited about helping Atlantans market themselves and market the city. Um, and then just as you think about it, we should be attracting technology here. We should be attracting more entertainment. This city can be not just the capital of the South. I think this can be the biggest city in the country. And I'm not saying that lightly. I think the time of New York is done. The time of California is done. There's those places are really going to struggle with the amount of, um, I guess I'd say, dependency they've created in some of their people on their systems. It's really going to be a challenge for them. Atlanta doesn't have that in our way, and I really think we can be a leader economically at a time when many are going to be struggling.
You talk about breaking boxes to build humans. And in regards to that phrase, what boxes did you have to break in your own life?
Okay. Well, thank you. That's a great question. So I would tell you, I'm going to tell you a story that's sort of my core story around these boxes. So when I was 7 years old, I I remember, if you remember the taste of like um, for 7 years, the 80s kid, maybe the 90s, maybe even today, you know that taste of like really sweet frosting from a cake on a wax candle, right? That's been buried in there. But you're like, I was like licking all those off because I loved that chore. Um, and that sweet taste, I remember that taste, the smell of tamales and frijoles were in the kitchen because my mom's family was Hispanic, and I was playing with Barbies for my cousin's birthday. It was her birthday, cousin Lucinda. And as she played with them, I was playing with her too. And my mom and my aunt were kind of bickering in the corner, and I they said a word, and they were very concerned about it. It was me and this word they were concerned about. And I didn't know that word. It was a Spanish word. So I went and translated it outside. I went out to the playground outside, kind of the backyard, and translated it with the kids that were there and came back in. And I was like, Mom, what does gay mean? And that was the word in Spanish that she had been saying with my aunt. She looked at me quite horrified. Who told you that word? And I was like, well, the kids on the playground told me that word. It was really her, right? Her and my aunt.
Mm.
Well, son, that's not a good word. That's not a good thing. That's when men are with men or women are with women, and that is not godly. That is not allowed. And that will separate people from God when they choose to live in that way. Like it was kind of a high level thing. And I had this horrible realization. I had been called that word before, just didn't know the English term, by other little kids. And something in me just knew this is something I'm going to have to struggle with. This was me. This word somehow does actually identify with me, but it could separate me from my mom, who I love so. I'm seven. Like my mama, my dad, my brothers and sisters, I didn't have sisters, but conceptually, my brothers, my church family, and God, and basically love and money, like all of it, right? So I was put in a box, right? I chose to go inside. No one can know that I may have this issue in my life because I'll lose everything that I care about. And I call that my first box, right? Now, everyone gets put in boxes. We get put in boxes because boys don't cry, girls do this, white this, rich this, poor this, right? Like those are all constructs we get from our parents. We get most of the strongest boxes. You know, if you were a kid that always had to find your food because no one was taking care of you, you learned that you weren't worth taking care of. That's a box, right? And then when you go through the village with your siblings, your cousins, your, neighbors, your schoolmates, the village is just handing out boxes like TikToks, right? And they'll basically continuously put you in different boxes. And some of them recognize something in you and they all pick on that trait or they all pick on this trait. And what you realize is every human by the age of 18 has not only had their parents put them in boxes, their village has put them in boxes, but we even put ourselves in boxes. We say, oh, you know what? I'm not attractive enough to be on video, so I better just do this radio thing. Or you know what? I'm not smart enough to write for the paper, so I'll just help with the folding of the paper. Whatever the thing is, Noah. And the truth is, everyone has boxes. So the important piece is to take the boxes off, but entirely off to look at the other side of the box and go, so what do I really want to be? What is the highest form of Noah? What's the highest form of Helmut, right? Well, you can be, I am gay, but what does that mean? What does that mean? Does it mean the things that I believed it was, the things that led me to looking in that mirror in Paris? Or is gay about being an excellent leader, an excellent father, an excellently balanced Christian, right? Someone who can really see the world in both masculine and feminine energies and put good solutions together. Maybe that's what gay is, right? So we take the same label and you got to relook at that label and realize you define what that label means. You define what black means or white means and what it doesn't mean. And when you realize that all of life, all of it is about defining who Noah is, then you realize you are literally creating your own human. You are defining if Noah will be shy, if Noah will be sad, if Noah will be fit, if Noah will be economically smart, or will Noah be taken for his money? Will Noah be a family man or will Noah be a loner? Like those are all decisions you get to make. And there's no box that you've been put under that someone else hasn't been put under and broke. And it doesn't mean to break everything, right? Like I want to emphasize, for example, Christian, right? I wound up now I'm a gay, loving Christian dad. So I broke the box all the way through. I have God, I've got my family, I got my kids, right? Like I broke through the box and claimed everything as part of my own. And I think that that's the kind of empowerment that we're all struggling with the boxes. And what you have to know is the whole game of life is breaking them consistently. High level executives, politicians you're seeing on TV, leaders at a corporation, the church preacher, wherever you're at, every person is literally working on their next boxes, right? The next thing to break through, the next way to see the world better and bigger. And I think that when we understand that no one doesn't have them, everyone has them, we're all at different places in breaking them. It sort of makes you understand that we're all much more alike than we are different. But a lot of the boxes we keep is because we keep some boxes ourselves, right? So what I've noticed is when you look at someone else and you go, they're a horrible, I'll just put a label on it. They're a horrible Republican. They're a horrible Democrat. Many times we haven't taken the time to really understand who they really are. We just use the box and the label and the judgment. And that creates a wall in our society, as opposed to actually realizing that person has 57 different views underneath that box of Democrat or Republican, and they're a lot more like you than they are not like you.
I think the box analogy is a really good way of showing the people that you can't just judge a book by its cover. That, yeah, they might be a Democrat, they might be a Republican, but that doesn't mean that they all agree with the same things that Democrats agree with, all the same things all Republicans agree with. I don't usually judge off those kinds of people. I my thing is I judge if you're a good person or not. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what you believe in. Don't care what your views are. I mean, that shouldn't define you as a person. Be like, okay, am I going to be friends with you because you think about it this way? And some people can have that opinion that I might be wrong in this scenario, but that's just how I am. I don't care about your past. I don't care about your uh, what you do. I just care about how you are as a person today and like how you treat people today. I mean, I've always gone kind of by that thing of um do unto others as you would like done to yourself. Or And so if people are nice to me, I'm nice to them. If they're a bitch to me, I'm a bitch to them. It's always kind of that um motto I've gone by. It's kind of like something from Love and Hip Hop. It was like, give me bitch, you get bitch. It's like, respect me and you get respect. So I just base it off of that. And I honestly think a lot of people really nowadays need to really just focus on, okay, throw politics out the window, throw beliefs out the window. How are they as a person? Are they a good person? Are they a nice person? Are they doing good in their lives? Are they doing bad in their life? That's what we should all be kind of judge on. Not We shouldn't judge over a color. We should not do it over red or blue.
Hmm. Yeah. And the red or blue part is it's true, though I will say there's some people who've given up on thinking. So they give up. They just sort of they say they agree with whatever they're told. And that's a
Right.
whole other level of laziness that we see in our society, right? But
Yeah.
it's there.
It's sadly there. I always dream that it gets better. I always pray that it gets better, but it just is going to take a long, long time. And it's not something that's going to be solved overnight, which I wish it would, because that would just mean everything will be better. But
I know, right? I
uh,
know, I know,
we have to
I know.
just take what we can get.
It's like, yes, but also be the change, right? So my job as a elected official is to actually help make that happen. And I think that's where it's not someone who just speaks to it. You actually have to create it.
Everyone that listens to this show is going to have a different opinion about, what I've said, what you've said, because that's just how we are as a society. But the overall message, what is the overall message that you want people that are listening to this show take from our conversation today? And what's one thing that you just would like for people to know from our interview today that they can remember for a lifetime?
Yeah. So, my name is Helmut Lucero Love is the full name I use. Helmut is protector. Lucero means light, and love is love. And I think so. My name means protector of light and love. So my mission is to protect truth and love in this world. And I would say that that starts with you, the listener. And what I mean by that is your story, your truth, and your fight for love in your life and love in the world around you is literally the most important story. It is a romance. It is a love story between you and the creator of the universe. There is no energy that you're going to spend more time with than that energy. It's going to see you through hard times, good times, bad times, great times. You're going to yell at it. You're going to fight with it. You're going to, you know what I mean? It's going to be the story of your life. And the more that you can love yourself, and I don't mean worship yourself and feed yourself bonbons and do things that the world tells you to do, but I think the more that you can break free of these boxes and free your mind to how beautiful you are and can be, right? And that is going to unleash service in you. What can't it's like you can't stop it from happening. When the more you love yourself, the more you are capable of giving to other people. And you know that golden rule you're referring to, it's like love others as you love yourself, right? But you have to love yourself to love others. It's both sides. And I would just say that once you love yourself enough that you have broken through some of these limitations and realized you are responsible for everything that's in your life, and you get on with the program of making it the life you want, what happens magically is you start to serve other people and you start making money. And that money helps you feed more of your dreams. And those dreams help feed more of your passion to serve. And it's like a cycle. And too many people in our generation have lost this passion to serve others, to love themselves, to love a creator. And I think that that old school recipe is the recipe. It is the recipe that a lot of people have not really in our time kind of we've passed it off because religions have abused us so much. But that spiritual connection is to love is everything because it's literally the answer to your economic challenges, the relationships you want to have. It's the answer to the political structure we have. It's the answer to everything. And so I guess I just say that if nothing else, I would want your listeners to be strongly encouraged to attack the next box in their life. And if you don't know how to do that, um, check out my book, wakeuptoyourlifemagic.com. There's the book, and there's actually an online class where I help people break their boxes in these different areas of life. It's not something that is, you can do it on your own, but it's really helpful when you have a guide. So it's strongly encourage that. Just because I know that every person's light in the world makes it a better world. The ripple effects from the life that Noah leads, or that Helmut leads, or that you lead listening to this, the ripple effects are big. You don't think of it as big. But I'm just thinking, Noah, like if you interviewed three people or met three people a day, how many is that over a year? It's 1,000 people almost. It's over 1,000 people. So you go, okay, 1,000 people a year for every year of your life. That's a lot of thousands of people who have exchanged energy. And there's many more when you think about people at the grocery store, or people at the mall, or people at the wherever you're going. So like it's we have a lot of power, each person does, to change the world. And it literally happens one person at a time. So again, my point would be your light, your love matter tremendously. So don't think that you don't matter. Your story is super important.
If my listener to my listeners, if people would like to maybe get in contact with you, whether if they have questions about maybe finding themselves, or if they would just like to really stay connected with you and support you during your um future future goals, where can they best find you at and have be the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, so you'll see my name if you're online, if you're watching this on YouTube, Dr. Helmut Love, Dr. Helmut Love.com. That's also my social media handle. So at Helmut Love, at Dr. Helmut Love on all socials. It's also, um, Wake Up to Your Life Magic. You can get there from my website, but I would say start there. There are different ways to connect. You can follow me on socials. You can actually, you can get a free guide to leadership that I developed on my website. Um, and yeah, you can also check out the book. Those are all great ways to connect and follow up.
And I will put all of his links in the description box below. I'll put his website, social media, and I'll also put his podcast down there. So if you'd like to support him on the podcast and listen to some of his episodes, I'll put the Wake Up to Your Life Magic and the Gaily Dose one down there. Even though he doesn't post on it, if you're just looking for new podcasts on there to find and listen to, I'll put that down there for you as well. And again, all those links will be down there for easy access for you guys. Feel free to follow me on social media as well. Instagram and TikTok at Lethal Venom Podcast, as well as Facebook, Twitter, X, even though I'm still going to call it Twitter, YouTube at Noah's Podcast. Feel free to follow any of those platforms to get updates about the podcast on the social media side. And as always, listen to Lethal Venom wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Pandora. Feel free to follow wherever you get podcasts so you get notified when new episodes come out. Thank you to everyone for tuning in today's episode. Y'all have a great rest of your day and week. Be safe, make good decisions, and I'll see you on the next episode of Lethal Venom.